Okay, so suppose that I say, I have something like the following. I say A is large, or A is a small tet. And suppose further I say, well, either A is not small, or it's not a tet, or it is a dodeck. And then my conclusion, and I'm just going to put it at number 3 right now, just so that we can see the argument as a whole close, with the elements close together. So either A is large or it is a dodeck. All right, so remember one of the ways that we can test our, or check, check the status of the argument as valid, specifically as a tautcon, right, is by asking Fitch to work the algorithm in the background. Okay. Now the question is why? Oh, sorry, it says at least one of the support formulas is not well formed. Thank you, Fitch. I appreciate that.
We can see your screen.
Huh?
We can see your screen.
Oh. What happened? All right, hold tight. Thanks for telling me.
Oh.
All right, hold on. Oh, that's weird. That's checked. Okay. How about now?
No.
You can't see it?
No. No.
Okay, now it should work.
Oh.
Are we back?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have no idea what I did. Okay, so anyway, sorry about that. So I didn't have a closed paren here. Right, so remember when we ask Fitch if the inference is a tautological consequence of the premises, what Fitch is doing is running a truth table in the background. And we also know that if the animal is a tautcon, it's also an FO and a Tarski's world consequence. Okay, so let's look at what we've got here. We've got a disjunction in premise 1, and then we have a disjunctive sequence in premise 2. And what we want is the disjunction at what is now line 3. So there are a couple ways that you can go about this proof. One is to say, oh, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to work a negation intro, right? So remember I mentioned this before, that you can use negation intro to get at, to get at your conclusion, regardless of what that conclusion is, as long as, obviously, the argument is valid. So this would be one approach to take. So
Is line 4 the goal?
Deb, yeah, what is now line 6 is the goal. Yeah, and I don't know that this is gonna copy paste for some reason. When I try to copy paste, sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. I haven't figured out the pattern. And I think because I've made the font larger, it's part of it is cutting off at the bottom.
That's fine. We can still read it.
Okay, good, good, good. Right, so here's one way to go. Whoopsie. Namely, you want to generate a contradiction so you can say, oh, come on, Mia. You want to generate a contradiction so you can say that the assumption is not the case, right? Another way that you can go is to say that you want to grab one of your disjuncts, or sorry, I didn't mean to say that. You grab one of your disjunctions and you eliminate the thing to the conclusion. So let me show you what I mean by that. You say, well, I've got two premises, each of which is governed by a disjunction. I'll just go ahead and derive my conclusion by eliminating the first disjunction, and I get the conclusion that I want. So, right, so I can say line 1 is my structuring, sets off my structuring subproof. Right, so that's one way you could go. You might say, I don't want to use line 1 as my structuring subproof initiator, right? Instead, I want to use line 2. Here again, though, you're going to have the conclusion of your argument as the goal of each of the subproofs. Oh, sorry, that was silly of me. And does everybody see that because I have two disjunctions in my second premise, my standard approach is going to be to set up a triple disjunction sequence. And then here, right, I cite the line, the premise that sets everything up, and then I cite my 3 disjunctions. Now, before taking any one of those 3 approaches I mentioned, do you guys feel comfortable? And remember, we talked about this together before, namely, at any point that you don't feel comfortable, please don't be shy about speaking up because you're probably not the only one. Remember, you know, if I can do this, anyone can do it, but it doesn't mean that there aren't confusions along the way. So speak up. And if you say, I really don't want to speak up, I'm too shy, that's fine. Please, please, please let me know. And we'll meet outside of class and we can run through every one of the issues that you're having. So first question for you. Confidence level, I know we're just starting out, but confidence level, do you say, I see each strategy that you've laid out? And if not, let me know.
In this example, or like just in general?
I know.
Like
Thank you, Louis.
Example.
Yeah. No. In this example, what do you think? And then if you're not sure, right, because a lot of times, you know, you might say, okay, Mia's asking me a question, but I really don't know how to answer the question because I'm still trying to kind of just figure out where we are, like what kind of, you're getting familiar with the territory. That's totally fine. Let me ask you a different question. Of the 3 strategies I laid out, And strictly speaking, there are only two strategies because there was one negation intro and two iterations of disjunction elim, right? The one that you're seeing right now is the second iteration. Which do you like better? Which one do you want to work here? Do you want to work this one where we've got 3 disjunction sequences, or do you want to work the the first disjunction option? You choose.
We do like the first one.
The first disjunction?
Yeah.
Sure.
So you're just saying because it is not small, you can assume that it is large or a dodec?
You will get there.
No, I understand. Because of the 2 premises.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, do you want to go here? Let's do both ways, right? But let's start with the one that you just said you wanted to do first, right? So we've got A is a small tet, and then A is large, right? So let's go back down to our conclusion, and we're setting up a disjunction elimination, right? So line 1 says A is large or it's a small tet. Line 3 says, okay, let's assume A is large. If A is large, then A is large or, tell me what to write.
Introducing the disjunction.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So does everybody see what Lewis has just said? Look at your rule sheet and yell at me if you can't see the rule sheet clearly. Alternatively, make sure you have your rule sheet in front of you. So we're introducing the disjunction, right? And by the way, as a reminder, when you hover over one of the rules in the drop-down menu, the rule form from page 557 shows up. So that's really nice. Okay, so we've introduced the disjunction. Check. Now we're moving on to A is a small tet. And the question that you probably have is, oh, holy crap, how are we supposed to get from A is a small tet to A is large or a dodec? Well, remember, you're going to use every premise that is given or that you have derived as a sub-conclusion, right? So what you're going to want to do is take a look at line 2 and notice that we've got a disjunction. We're going to have to eliminate that disjunction, right? So let's go ahead and assume that A is small. And what do we want? We want the conclusion A is large or a dodec. I'm going to try and copy paste. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. And it doesn't. Actually, will it work here? Let's try it. You'd think after all these years I'd know. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. I still haven't figured out why. Oops. Right, so we want the conclusion. And then we're still within our right side disjunction elimination subproof sequence. Now we're going to say A is not a tet, right? And what do we want? A is a large or a dodec. And then the last part of the sequence is A is a dodec, so A is large or a dodec. And then we get out, right? So here's what I'd like you to notice. Can you see that line 14 is back out onto the second of the two structuring subproof sequence lines. And notice also that line 14 is the result of the elimination of line 2 via lines at present 6 through 8, 9 through 11, 12 to 13.
Where does line 12 come from?
Line 12, Deb?
Yeah.
Yeah, great question. It's the very last disjunct from line 2.
So the other two subproofs above that was from line 5, right? Is that correct? You were doing the...
Right, so let me try this. Hold on just one second. Let me try to I don't know if this will help. Okay, so I'm marking in red the, actually sorry, hold on just a sec, guys. I want this to be really thick. Okay. All right, so yeah.
Mhm.
So the red is the disjunction sequence that begins from line 1.
Right.
And get ready. The blue is the disjunction sequence, right, from line 2. So Deb, have I answered your question or no?
You can still have it as a subproof. You don't need to have it maybe like a sub. Okay, yeah, I understand.
Oh, I think, okay, so correct me if I'm wrong. I think you're saying that, so you're grasping that the blue nested sequence has to be nested. It can't be on its own separate successive subproof line.
Yeah.
Yeah. Really good question. Really good observation. Yes. Does it make sense why that's the case?
Yeah.
Right, because once we start the sequence at line 5, we've got to find a way to deal with A is small, A is a tet, right? Or rephrase, A is small and A is a tet. Because otherwise we're not going to get to, so end of the sequence starting at line 5, otherwise we're not going to get to line 14.
Yeah, I see it.
All right, so just to, yeah, so hold on just a sec, just to make sure that we're okay with this. Right, so this is, the conclusion of each of our nesting subproofs. And then if we go back to our red, this is the conclusion of our originating subproofs. So for some of you, the colors are helpful. For some of you, it's a mess. so yeah, tell me if once tell me if it's a mess, and I'll get rid of the colors once the folks who like the colors see the structure that we're after. Okay, you're good. All right, so here we go. I am moving my cursor down to line 7. And isn't it the case that I need to make the contradiction explicit? Which means I need to eliminate small a from line 5. And then I just realized that I probably need to erase anyway, because otherwise our lines are going to get all messed up. And who was it, Lewis? Was it you who told me? Somebody told me. Yeah. I'm so excited you taught me about the way to erase more efficiently. It's very exciting. It's very cool. All right, so are you guys okay with... Thank you, Lewis. So are you guys okay with the move from 5 to 7? And then please tell me what to do at line 8. Why did we insert a line at line 8?
Because you're contradicting them.
Good. Right, so once we realize that, so sorry, let me back out for just a sec. We know that the end of this subproof, which is line 9, right? So the goal of this subproof is in fact the goal of the argument. There's no way for us to get from line 5 to line 9 without finding some sort of contradiction that allows us to say, well, you know, since there's a contradiction, it's got to be the case that A is large or a dodec, right? So we move, so we get our contradiction that we have generated truth functionally, and now we're going to eliminate it. Right, so can check as we go. So far, so good. Now, what do you guys think is going to happen at line 11?
You contradict with line 5.
We're going to make the contradiction explicit, which means we've got to,
right.
Eliminate the relevant sentence by way of Disjunction Elim. Check. And then you're exactly right, Lewis. We want to assert the contradiction. And then what are we saying is going to be the justification for line 13?
Elimination.
Beautiful. Yep, you got it. And it'd be nice if I would highlight the right thing. Check that bad boy. We're good to go. Okay, so far so good still, I hope.
Yeah.
And then this one, we hope we say, easy peasy, right? If A is a dodec, then it's large or a dodec.
Right, yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Now, remember the benefit of setting up our structuring subproof, right? By setting it up from the get-go, and I'm sorry, I said structuring, I meant to say that the subproof here. By setting that up from the get-go, we are in a good position now to simply check that we're correct. And now we get out, finally, from our structuring subproof, right? So lines 1, 3 to 4, and then 5, all the way down to 16. What do we think?
Yeah, I get it now.
All right, so for those of us who say, ah, yeah, got it, think about how you are going to explain it to yourself. One of the things that, so I think I've mentioned before that we tend to fall into one of two camps in logic, neither one of which is better than the other. They each have their benefits and challenges. One camp is the, oh, I see it. I see it. I don't even feel like I'm thinking about it. I just see it. That's great, right? It makes sense seemingly immediately. But what's happening that you're not aware of is there's stuff whirring around, right? You're doing a lot of very quick grinding out of inferences. You're going to need to slow it down and be able to explain what you get so easily. The other camp is for those of us who don't see it right away. And it feels overwhelming. It's just really frustrating. But don't give up heart. Remember, if I can do it, anybody can do it. Don't give up heart, because when you, as we're working together, as you're working on your own, find ways to make it make sense. Once it clicks, the whole system opens up, and then everything makes sense. It just might take a little bit, right? Now, because we're getting close to time, we don't have the time to work this proof, the other two ways that we talked about. But why don't we do this? Let's plan to pick this same argument up on Tuesday, and we'll work through the other two versions of the derivation. The other version being the first disjunction elim that we set out as an option, and then before that we had a negation intro. Does that sound reasonable? Thumbs up. Good. Thank you, Chloe.